Welcome back to our adventure restoring this 1997 triple locked Toyota Land Cruiser. Last few videos we got the cylinder head off, the oil cooler off, and everything on the top end disassembled. Today what I'm going to be doing is disassembling the cylinder head, getting the rest of the bits off of it, and getting it ready to send over to the machine shop to have it pressure checked, cleaned, and resurfaced. If it's your first time watching, thanks for joining us, and if you want to see more content like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to be notified about any new videos that are being uploaded, make sure to hit that bell icon right next to the subscribe button as well. So the head is off. We've got it sitting over here on a table. What I need to do is get this lower intake manifold off of the cylinder head, the brackets, which you've got some of here, some of the different components that are still bolted on, the engine lift bracket here, this one, that bracket over there. I'm going to get all those stripped off, and once they're off, the next thing I need to do is get all of the valves removed, and that involves getting the retainer pushed down while holding the valve in place, taking off the two little retaining clips, removing the retainer and the clips off the top of the valve, removing the spring, and then the valve comes out of the bottom there. And then the other thing we want to do as part of that process is also remove all of the valve seals for all 24 of these, so that we have a perfectly stripped head for the machine shop to be able to get it as clean as possible. First thing I'm going to do is work on this intake manifold section just to get it out of the way. As you can see, you've got the bolts on either side of the runners, here and here, here and here, and so on and so on. Intake manifold is off. I've got it set aside for now. I'm going to get these gaskets and things out of the way, toss in the trash, and then we're going to work on all of these brackets. And very last, I need to remove all of these sensors. And you got to be real gentle with those, make sure they don't break. Everything is off of here at this point. The only thing left on the head are the studs and the press-in nipples. I'm going to go ahead and call the machine shop and see if they're alright with me leaving those on there. If they want them off, then I'll double nut those and get the studs removed, and the nipples, they'll have to remove them and press them back in. Next thing I'm going to do is start disassembling the retainers and everything to get the valves out one by one, and I'll show you exactly how that's done and what tool you need to use. So this is the guy you're going to need. This is going to be the easiest way to remove the valves. There are other ways to do it. This is what I prefer. It's a tool made by OTC. I'll put the Amazon link in the description. It's not very expensive. You want this because it's going to make your life a lot easier when disassembling the valves, retainers, and the springs, and then also reassembling them once it's time to put everything back together. There's other tools where you can push and shove and all of that. They're a little bit more difficult and easier to make mistakes with. So the way this tool works goes this direction here, and you've got the clamping force that's controlled by the lever right here, right? And the way it attaches to the head, this side pushes up on the valve, so right there, pushes that way on the valve, or upwards if you've got the cylinder head laid down, which you should have it laid down to do the next step. And then this one pushes down on the retainer from the top and compresses the retainer while the valve is still pushed all the way into the head. What that does is allows the end of the valve stem to protrude past the valve's retainer at the top, and that will expose the two little clips that sit on the valve stem to hold the retainer in place. Then you gently remove those two little clips that are holding the retainer onto the valve stem, and once those two are out, the retainer at the top, the spring, and the valve will all be able to come out of the head, and at that point the only thing left is going to be the valve stem seal, which you can pull out with a pair of valve stem seal pliers, which I'll put a link to in the description as well. Let's get started. I'm going to show you how to do this on a couple of valves. I'm not going to bother showing you the steps on all 24 valves because it's very repetitive, but I'll show you what the process looks like on a couple of valves. That way when you're ready to do yours, you have a visual of what it looks like as well. Here's what the tool looks like with one of the valves depressed. Let me show you exactly where it fits up. So on the bottom, I've got it sitting right at the center of the valve, and I've got it adjusted. You want to make your adjustments on the first compression. And then after you make those adjustments, the rest of the valves shall all be identical. Now we've got the retainer pressed down just enough to where the retaining clips are visible. You can see the one right there that's kind of fallen off to the side already, and the other one that's still on the valve stem. I'm going to use a little magnet or some needle nose pliers to grab those two out and then move on to the next valves. As you can see, those two little clips are gone. Got them right here on the end of my magnet. Now I'm going to gently release the clamp. Make sure you do it gently, or else that retainer is going to go flying across the room. And then once the clamp is released, I should be able to use my magnet to get that retainer off the top of the valve, get the spring off of the top of the valve, and then just gently pull the valves itself out of the bottom of the cylinder head. I've got them all pulled out, and there they are. So that's the retainer that sits on top of the spring. That's the valve spring itself, and then that's the valve and the valve stem that comes up through the bottom of the head. And that groove right there, if you see it, that groove right there is where those two little retaining clips go, as it protrudes above that retainer to hold the retainer and the spring and everything in place. Now, one more thing to make sure of, unless you want to reshim your entire cylinder head, is to keep these organized as far as where they're coming off of the cylinder head. If you remember, on one of the previous videos, we labeled each one of the valve buckets along with the shim that was sitting on top of each one, as far as exhaust valve 1 through 12 and intake valve 1 through 12. We're going to do the same thing with these valves, because no matter how accurate these are built, they are all going to be very, very slightly different. So we want to make sure they go back exactly where they were before. If they don't, then we're going to have to remeasure and reshim all of the buckets that sit between the tops of the valve stems, and the cam lobes on the two cams, the intake cam and the exhaust cam. So pick your method, whatever works for you. You can put a piece of tape around it. You can label them individually in bags, 24 different little bags, or you can just put a piece of masking tape around the stem and put your little label on the stem itself. What we want to do is label them E1 through 12 and I1 through 12 for intake and exhaust valves. For me, what I'm going to do is put each one of them in a little tiny sandwich Ziploc bag. That way I don't have to worry about all of the grease and everything with tape sticking and everything else. I'm just going to write E1 through 12 and I1 through 12 on 24 of these little sandwich bags and throw them in there along with the spring and the retainer and the two little clips, and that way they stay organized. Aiden, you want to explain to everybody how we do this?
Yeah, sure.
All right, tell us.
First we use the clamp to get this piece out, and then
To get it out?
to push it down.
To push it down?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we use the pick to get the clips out, and then we use the magnet to get them.
Oh, that's easy. And then what do you do with each one?
Put them in bags.
Do you label the bags?
Uh-huh.
Yep. All right. How many we got done so far?
2, 4, 6, 7, 8.
8. How many more we got left?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18.
Close enough. All right, man. Let's get to it. You think we can get them all done?
Yeah.
All right. We just compressed this one, and we got the two little clips out, right? Now what are you doing? Which part is that?
This one.
Remember what it's called?
Nope.
A retainer.
Retainer.
Yep. We'll put it there, organized.
Spring.
There's the spring. Yep. Next part. And the...
Trumpet.
No. What's it called?
The trumpet.
The valve.
The valve.
Let me see it. All right, we're going to bag that one and keep going, right?
Yeah.
We're almost there. We got one more on the intake side and then a few on the exhaust side. Aiden, we got all the valves out?
Yeah.
Yep. So now we got to take out the valve seals.
Okay.
And those little things are valve seals. It's hard to see, but that guy right there, Aiden, stop being crazy.
I didn't get one.
So those, see that little black rubber thing right there? Those are valve seals. You can do it with a pick, but much easier with valve sealed pliers. Let me show you what those look like. This is a valve seal plier, and these are the tools to drive them back in for different size valve seals, valve stem seals. This is a little driver. It's got a threaded end right there, and you've got different sizes that you can thread into the end of that to drive the valve stem seal back onto the spot when you're ready to put new ones in. And we're going to do that after it comes back from the machine shop. And these guys are valve stem seal pliers, and it's got a little rounded section inside that's serrated to help grab the valve stem seal, and you just put it on there, grab, wiggle around, and you pull, and you can twist and wiggle until it comes out. Much easier than using a pick. So we're going to use these, pull out all 24 of those valve stem seals, and we're going to throw those away since we're not going to be doing anything with them. They're going to be garbage, and we're going to replace them with new ones when we reassemble the head after it comes back from the machine shop. Well, let me show you here. So there's your valve stem seal pliers. There's the valve stem seal down there. You put the pliers right around it, grab it, and don't put a ton of pressure on there, just enough to grab it, and twist. And as you're twisting, pull up at the same time. And there it is. That one is off. That one's still on there. Came out in two pieces. This top piece came out first and then that one. But that's all it is, and that's what it looks like. Now I'm going to go through, remove all the rest of those. Take your time. You got to kind of wiggle and twist and wiggle and twist. They're not going to pop right out, but you want to make sure you get them all out. Don't damage the metal nipple that's underneath there, because that's going to be where the new valve stem seal seats onto. So make sure that's left alone and it's still okay in good shape. And there we are. All of the valve stem seals are out. And this head is ready to go to the machine shop. So I'm going to get this guy packed up and drop it off at the machine shop tomorrow. From what they said, it should be about a 3-day turnaround. And in the meantime, that'll give me some time to work on getting some of the other things disassembled off of the motor. I still need to pull the upper and lower oil pans off and some of the other components on the engine block. I'm going to be replacing the knock sensors with newer style knock sensors. If you are going with a standalone ECU, I would definitely recommend going that route. Instead of the old school spring-loaded knock sensors, the newer plastic angled style knock sensors. I'll show you those when we get to that point, and what the difference is as far as fitment and everything and how to convert over. And one more thing, y'all. If you get anything out of these videos, I hope it's that these sorts of things are not impossible and everybody is capable of doing the basic maintenance, obviously, but even something like this, a cylinder head removal, head gasket job, none of it is rocket science. It's all just nuts and bolts, and you got to know which one comes off in which order and where they go back to. And some of those things that you saw earlier, like my son helping me remove the retainers and the valve springs and the valves out of the cylinder head, I'm teaching him that stuff while he's 9 years old still, so that he knows how to do these things on his own when he gets older, if he needs to, if he wants to. Hopefully, he'll never have to, and he'll be able to pay people to do it. But if he enjoys it, and if it's something he likes to do, hopefully he has the skills when he grows up to do it. Not all of us were lucky enough to be raised like that. I wasn't raised in a vehicle-loving family. I learned it all on my own as I grew up, just because I had a love for cars and all things with some kind of an engine. And it kind of grew on me over the years. So if you get anything out of these videos, I hope it's that these sorts of things are not impossible. None of it's rocket science. And you can do it just as easily as anyone else. Don't be afraid to turn a wrench, whether it's the simple stuff or the complicated stuff. Just jump in there, do your research, and get your hands dirty. Anyway, love y'all. See you next time.